Alright folks, how's it going? We ended up feeding with this mixer wagon for the first time Friday morning. After I got done feeding with it, I had some things that I wanted to do to it, some issues that I had seen with it, some things that kind of popped up. The first thing that popped up was this tractor did not start, and you'll see that in the video. I ended up replacing batteries on it Friday night. I had some issues with a conveyor chain and just some odds and ends that we ended up doing to it, and that's what I end up doing in this video. The next video that I have coming out will be the video where you'll see us feeding with it and load and feed and whatnot. Now we put the 4250 on the mixer wagon just to kind of get it into the shop and get it going, and then I decided to just leave it on there, and I figured I would just put small loads on it and whatnot, and it ends up turning out to be okay on there. It seems to handle it somewhat. Now they recommend having 170 horsepower on this mixer wagon, and a lot of that has to do with the amount of weight that it's going to carry. You want to be able to stop this thing. Now this mixer wagon has a 2-speed gearbox on there, and when I get a real heavy load on it, I end up putting it in low speed, and the tractor does fine. This tractor will not handle a 30,000 pound load, and that's what this mixer is capable of holding, is 30,000 pounds. So we're going to get on with the rest of the video, folks. Hope you enjoy it. Remember to leave me a thumbs up if you like this video. Drop me a comment down below, and we will see you at the end of the video. Well, it is Friday morning now. We just got done feeding a little while ago, and I had some issues with this conveyor on this mixer wagon. Everything went good, other than there's a slot that the chain has wore through on the front of this conveyor. Now, I seen that was like that, and I couldn't figure out what in the heck would have happened. But what did actually happen was, it looked like they had replaced a bearing at some point in time on this front side of this right-hand shaft. And when they replaced the bearing, they ended up installing that shaft too far, or it had been like that since day one. This is a new chain here, and I got an idea what happened to the chain is it wore off all the rivets, and I think that's why they had to replace the chain. So Nate and I are working on getting these mixers wrapped up. He's stealing some parts off that 900 that we're going to hold on to, and then we're going to scrap it. So I ended up splitting this bearing with a torch. I've got a new one to put on there. I ended up taking the orbit motor off of this end so that I could move that. The way this orbit motor bolts on there, there's not a lot of room between the end of that shaft and that double chain coupler there. So I've got that split. We're going to make some adjustments here, get that chain moved over. Nate's cutting some stuff off of this 900 mixer. I wanted the cylinder off of the door, because I'm going to use that for the door on this 1200. So he's taking his bracket off. I don't know if the cylinder's any good. We might have to rebuild the cylinder. The door is shot. The track for the door is not available from Supreme. We're going to have to custom make the door track if we choose to put a door on the back of that mixer. So we're just finishing up a little bit of stuff here, and we will join you guys in a little while here. He's got the bracket off in there. That's what the cylinder hooks to. So we're going to save this stuff, kind of taking some stuff off as we go. What else we got? We got the shroud for the PTO up front that Ben took off earlier. That's for in case we want to take that 2-speed gearbox off. I don't like the angle on that PTO. Now, this tractor is not going to be staying on this mixer wagon. So a 7000 series tractor is going to have a little bit, the angle is going to be a little bit different because the PTO is just a little bit higher than the drawbar on a 7000 series, but not by much, and this tractor seemed to run it just fine. So we're going to get stuff moved around, and this conveyor tray, I had to pull it to the side so that I can loosen this chain. They had it over to the right a little bit. This one doesn't have the hydraulic cylinder on there. It's just got a pin you drop down in to the various holes. So we're going to get this thing centered and just pin it because we don't ever move it. So you're on to the next thing, right? Alright, I better get to it here. Alright, we're getting into doing a little bit more than what I figured on originally doing with this. The sprockets on this shaft here, this side of the conveyor is the driven side. There's the orbit motor down there on the floor, and then this is the side it drives from. So there's regular sprockets on this side, then there's just idler sprockets on that side. They're really just round wheels is all. So this sprocket here is about wore out. The teeth are starting to get small. We'll end up showing you what they look like here in a second, but I've got a set of new sprockets. So we're going to go ahead and replace this shaft on this end. I have to replace that bearing there anyway. We're going to move this bearing, which is good, from the back side to the front because it's easier to change on the front side. We'll put the new one on the back, and then when we couple everything together, we'll have basically new parts on here. So I've got to roll this shaft around. I've got the master link is right here. We'll get the master link apart, and then we can I'm just going to cut the shaft on either side. Then when we put the new sprockets on, I'll put the set screws in with the half moon keys, and then I'll tack weld them so that they can't loosen up and move. So we're going to roll that ahead, get that bearing off in there, get our master link out, and continue with the rest of this project. Alright, the rear bearing is off. I've got the shaft out. I ended up cutting it. Now what they do is they end up putting this pipe between the sprockets on the shaft, and then this pipe is supposed to weld to the floor of the conveyor here. So I got to see if I've got a piece of that pipe. But we've got this apart now. The sprockets, really this one should be wore more than that one because it starts to get the drive first from there, even though it is one shaft. Just the way the torque works, it usually runs harder on this back side. But at any rate, this is the reason why I wanted to replace this sprocket, mainly because the teeth are not all the same size. So the way that chain was running so damn hard, here's the new sprocket, which, I mean, there's some life left in that old one, but with the amount of wear that's on them cogs, after a while it's just going to wear out. Now, perhaps you can see quite a bit on that one there. So, it is what it is. So we're going to get this all put back together, put all in there like new. Therefore, I'll get it all put back together and new, and then that way we won't have any trouble with it. So I'm going to get my parts lined up, get it all put back together, and done with this job. Alright, the conveyor sprockets are in on this side. I got the chain tight. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this spot where the chain wore through the front of the conveyor floor here. It ran into this side here and it ended up wearing out. This side plate here right in the front. So I gotta cut this little piece of steel off, and then I'm gonna set a piece of flat bar in there, lay it in, jam it in, and then weld it. So I'm gonna clean this up, get a piece in there, and tack weld it in. Alright, I just got done welding the 5-inch strip. I went 5 inches tall and I'm 30 some inches wide. Just a piece of 12 gauge sheet metal that I put in there. Now we're going to get close up to what the gap is in this. There. Alright, so what you're seeing right there is the actual conveyor chain. And it is wore out this front section. But we're a good finger distance away from that now because we've got that problem corrected. So I've got another 5-inch strip that I'm going to push in from that way. They're going to meet in the middle here, and then we'll just zip a weld down through the center here, weld it to that 1x2 right there, and then we'll get it up into the top a little bit there. So I've got this side tacked in. This side's all covered up, so that's mended there. We just got to mend that other section, and then we'll be good. Alright, I got my caps on there. I put it on in 2 pieces so that I could slide it in behind the 1x2. I've got a 1x2 right here, and then there's another one right there. So I slid this piece in first, pried it up to the top, welded it at the top, did the same thing with this one. Now I got to put my bolts back in here. I'd take the bolts out on this side because I couldn't get them in there. So got the bolts, I got to put them back in, and then when I put this one in, I slid it through there, pulled it back, and I left it gapped here so that I could weld that seam, and I burned through on purpose a couple of times so that I could get the center of that to hold, so because I was not able to weld it at the bottom. So that's capped on there. I won't have a mess spewing out through here anymore. The chain's not going to rub through there again because we've got the chain moved back. So I'm going to get the bolts in there, then I've got to center this conveyor because this one, unlike our other ones, our other 2 mixers this one doesn't have the cylinder on it. The cylinder hooks right over there, and it allows you to move your table in and out, and we don't move the tables at all. So we're going to pull that over to center, pin it right here, drop it down, and probably, I don't know if it goes in this hole or if it goes in that one, but we'll pin that, and then we will end up putting some batteries in this 4250. Alright, upon changing this battery on this left hand side, we got the battery all in there now, but this positive cable, this cable here goes to the starter. And I noticed when I took this one off, it's got a crack right, you can see it right there. So this end is no good, this is not going to stay tight. You can kind of see it right at my fingernail there. So this end needs to be changed. Now you have a couple different options. You can replace this whole cable, which this is not a long cable. It ain't all that much money, but I've got all kinds of cable here. So we're gonna cut this end off. We can put a new end on it. These ends here are junk. These ends are no good. I just have this one kicking around to use as an example. What we're going to do is use this solder on type. This has already got solder in the end itself. This is a 2-aught cable end for a positive battery post. So we're going to cut this off. I'm going to pull the jacket back on the cable, and we're going to heat this up, slide it on. Alright, we're getting ready to put a PTO guard on this mixer wagon. The frickin' battery cut out on the camera here. And I didn't realize it till I was mid-project here. So what we're doing, I don't know how much footage it gathers, because once in a while when the battery goes dead, it loses the clip that it was on. So at any rate, what we have is our scale monitor is right there. And then we use that to view it from the cab, and then obviously we're viewing it from when we load it. So every time we go from load to unload, we're having to switch that, turn that monitor around while the PTO is running. Now, I've already got one bolt in here on this piece of rubber, and when you're reaching and stretching for the scale, it puts you right into this danger zone here of this PTO. So what I'm using is a piece of, it's just conveyor belting. And I've got 2 holes drilled in it. I've got to measure out my 3rd one. And then I'm just going to slam some bolts in there, and you'll see what we got going on here. But this is just to kind of make things a little safer. I don't want anybody to get caught in that damn PTO. So let's finish this project up, and then that's going to do it for the mixer wagon and whatnot here. So I'm just going to measure out the 3rd hole, drill it, and then we're going to bolt it down. Now I don't have, ouch, this is the bolt that was in there. It's a 16mm bolt, and the next length bolt I have is about a 50mm. And we're going to have to put a nut on this one because I cannot go down into that gearbox. Them holes dead end. So we'll put a nut on the bolt, and we'll just leave part of the bolt sticking up out. Alright, so just a little recap. We ended up monkeying around with a conveyor today, packed some holes, installed the shaft and some sprockets, bearing, put batteries in the tractor, blew the tires up on the tractor. We ended up putting a PTO guard on here, just a makeshift PTO guard. We'll see how this goes. This should serve its purpose and keep anybody's clothing from getting in there. So that's set. We're gonna run up and park this. Here's my cap from this side. This is where the conveyor was wore through. So when I fed this morning, this was filled right up with haylage and stuff. So we're not gonna have anything seeping through that. So tomorrow when I feed cows, I'll do a little video on the tractor running and whatnot. So we're going to take this up, park it up by the commodity shed, and we're going to call it a night. We'll come back into this video tomorrow, do a little small feeding video, and that'll close this video out. So we're going to take this up and park it.